welcome back to the Blue Door Pub, Thunderdome, for another Bull with Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast. A show about everything and nothing at all, coming at your ass 5 days a week. Sin shotgun is Josh the Roaster. I like that you just dropped the last name, which is Nelson. Just took on a persona like Chance the Rapper, Tyler the Creator. Yeah,
that's what I was going for.
I was actually thinking about trying to take one up and be like Andy the Talker or something. But
that would work.
I can't quite put my finger on something good. Maybe we'll work. Maybe we'll work it out down the line.
I'll come up with some ideas for you.
Hey. There we go, brainstorming. Tell a friend, spread the word, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. Plus, give me a follow on all the social media at Andy Carlson Show. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. Yeah, that's also a thing now.
Is that still a thing?
It is. It's really big with the kids.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's where everything's headed. Like 10 years ago, when they were only the kids are on Facebook. No adult will ever be on Facebook. And then, all the grandparents are now.
That is truly unfortunate.
You're pretty big on the social media at Josh the Roaster on Twitter and Instagram.
That's right.
You also on Snapchat?
I am, but I rarely post. I just go on there to look at people's weird posts.
The lurker.
Yeah, basically.
I like the feature that you can see who's watching your stuff, and pretty surprising who the lurkers are.
That's me.
Yeah. So today we're talking coffee, and we'll squeeze in some Vikings talk too. Josh, a big Vikings fan, and pretty much whatever comes up. But also coming up from our friend Soda Stick Co. Saturday, June 10th, St. Paul Summer Beer Fest.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Dedicated craft beers, outdoor craft beer festival. You know what's going on. Unlimited sampling from 100 breweries.
Oh my!
Yeah, it is crazy. And they got a tweet out right now. I think it's pinned. I don't know. It's one of their more recent tweets. Retweet and follow them and the festival, and you can win free tickets. And they'll be there slanging all that great Soda Stick gear. Sodastick.com. Oh, also the skull hat. Everyone loves the skull hat whenever I wear it. I always get asked, hey, man, where'd you get that skull hat? No one asked where I get the Atlanta Braves hat. I don't know why. Yeah, sodastickco.com, and retweet that tweet. Win some free tickets to the St. Paul Summer Beer Fest. Josh, what kind of beer are you into?
Well, I like light, hoppy, refreshing stuff most of the time.
Yeah, you're a summer beer guy.
Yeah.
Most
of the time when I have a beer, it's like after work, and I don't want something that's going to make me sleepy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I found that I obviously work with some craft brewers as sponsors, and I also have a new web show called Andy Drinks Beer, where Andy drinks beer. And I always sort of had I didn't get the IPA hype. Like, I appreciate a couple of them, but, like you said, when it gets, too romancy and, the beer snobs is like, oh, these hops were aged in a kiln back in Mesopotamia, and you can get the notes of persimmon. Anytime persimmon enters the equation, I'm out.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But segueing that into coffee, I feel like which beverage has worse snobs, beer or coffee?
Wow. I would say that the coffee snobs probably come across as more pretentious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a ton of beer snob friends, so
yep.
But I have a lot of friends in the coffee business who would turn up their nose at pretty much anything. I think that they're more. Coffee lends itself to a certain demographic that tend to be pretty hoity-toity about what they're consuming in general.
Discerning. Yeah.
That's the word.
That's a $10 word.
That's the word.
And they're the people who watch films.
Yes, not
movies. Yeah, it's like
films.
Yeah, they've never even heard of Michael Bay, which actually might be good, but I kind of enjoy his work. And
it's entertaining.
Yeah, coffee. I feel like I really like beer. I appreciate high-end coffee. I appreciate really artisan, really source stuff that we'll get into. But like beer, I enjoy a great craft beer. I enjoy American piss water, light like
I love
beer.
PBR.
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed.
And coffee-wise, like when we go out, I'll obviously get something high-end, something new, something I haven't tried before. But when we're at home, I'm busting out the Kirkland Costco coffee.
Just like my dad.
Yeah.
My wife has a Keurig.
Yeah.
For a long time, it was just a source of shame for me to be someone in the specialty coffee industry and have a Keurig sitting on my counter at home. But I've sort of come to just, you let certain things roll off your back.
But I feel like Keurig would lend itself to like the, maybe not like higher end preparation. Like there's no grinding your own. There's no French press.
Well, you can grind your own. They do have the little basket that you can put your own fresh ground coffee in, but it's all about the process, and it just doesn't lend itself to really good tasting coffee.
All right. Well, let's take a step back. How did you get into the roasting game? Where'd you come from? Where'd you go?
Well, so I lived in Lakeland, Florida for about a decade, and while I was down there,
Sorry, is that near Tiburon?
It's about halfway between Tampa and Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Right dead center in the middle of the state.
Yeah.
But yeah, while I was down there, I went to school and got married, and I was actually in the ministry, working as a worship pastor at several different churches.
You do have a cool youth pastor vibe.
I do.
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, you got the religious tattoos, and you can turn your chair backwards and you're dressing the kids, and it's like, hey kids, I got something important to say, but it's going to be informal and cool.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I just sort of came to the realization one day that maybe I would be better. I don't know how to put this. Better served volunteering in the church, and not necessarily taking a paid job doing that sort of thing. I'm very rough around the edges, if you will.
I feel like in the current state of the religion, the beggars can't really be choosers when they're looking for new pastors.
This is very true.
Because I grew up Lutheran, still member of a church and still go semi-regularly, but I remember when it was like a true calling, and then there was like a backlog of pastors trying to get into our church, and we were always rotating. But now it's like you don't find too many people heading off to theology school, or at least in the numbers that you don't see anymore.
Yeah, that's very true. I just don't have the pastor vibe, and a couple of the guys that I worked for, that was an issue for them.
Yep.
Sometimes I cuss. I really enjoy drinking beer.
Yeah. You're just like Martin Luther then.
Yeah, I mean, basically. But
Martin Luther was kind of a drunk a-hole. They really gloss over that. He's a typical German.
Amen. Yeah. Well, in the sect of Christianity that I was in, that was just pretty frowned upon. So, anyways, through a series of events like that, I sort of separated myself from that, I guess, vocational calling, and thought to myself, what do I love? What will I enjoy getting up and doing every day? And got an opportunity to help some friends of mine open a specialty coffee shop in Lakeland a couple of years ago, and just really fell in love with it. Started off just as a barista, making drinks and sort of experimenting with different recipes and all of that kind of stuff, and got an opportunity to apprentice with a roaster down there at a place called Patriot Coffee Roasters in Lakeland. Chris MacArthur was my roast master, if you will, and I spent a couple of months working with him and just sort of learning what coffee roasting is all about, this is kind of the science behind it. And I fell in love, and I kind of realized that, you don't see a whole lot of, 40, 50-year-old baristas. It's just it's not a sustainable career choice. And, but roasting, I really believe it is. because it's something where you don't have to.
It's a skill. It's a vocation.
It's definitely a skilled labor. Not a whole lot of people know how to do it, so the market is there. And it's I could work by myself in my little roasting warehouse, doing my thing, and it just seems a lot more sustainable, a lot more. It could be a lot more lucrative than working for minimum wage and tips.
Yeah, and I feel like we're losing out on apprentice jobs. Like the old school, like
plumber.
Yeah, like plumber, electrician,
yep.
Like even in like chefdom.
Masonry, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like jobs that will never go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like coffee roaster is one of them as well, because we're not getting rid of our coffee anytime soon. Yeah. And you can automate roast it, except it still needs something that has like the human touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's definitely a good balance between man and machine going on there.
All right, so walk me through the roasting process, like from when the beans show up till it's in the package, ready to be ground and roasted.
Sure. So, basically when you're picking coffee, there's companies, specifically there's a company just up the street here called Cafe Imports, and their whole business is importing coffee from Africa, Central America, Indonesia. They send people to farms in all of these different countries around the equator.
Ooh, sorry, where's Arabica?
Oh, geez.
Because when I was a kid, I thought that was a country.
It's a varietal of. So there's basically, and I don't have my textbook in front of me, so I don't remember this all. But there's. I know I should have studied up more before I showed up here. There are different varieties of coffee beans. Arabica is probably the biggest.
Yep.
Coffee originated in Ethiopia.
It's a cradle of life.
Amen. And was sort of transported all around the world from there, and different, I don't know anything about horticulture really, but different strains and different varieties were spliced and formed and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, basically people from the companies like Cafe Imports will go and visit farms and they'll cup coffees, they'll taste coffees like that are grown at that farm, roasted fresh right there, and they evaluate and they choose coffees based on their grading system, and they'll buy an entire farm's worth of coffee sometimes and have it shipped over here.
When they go through and like roast on site and then do like the sipping and the and then spit and like I respect that, because they actually know what the hell they're doing. Not the guy in Brooklyn who thinks he knows what he's talking about. He's like, the 10, this is 210-y.
That's wine.
Damn it, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all like these douchey buzzwords, and sometimes they cross over.
You're on the right track. I mean, there's developing your palate is definitely a skill, and it's basically like muscle memory. I'm actually working on a program to implement at Dunn Brothers right now, where we sort of teach everybody at our shop how to taste different flavors that are inherent in the coffee. So, for instance, if there's a coffee that has a blueberry flavor note in there somewhere, you need to learn how to recognize that, because in one sip of coffee, you could possibly get like 15, 20 different flavors.
Yep.
Different notes in there. You could be like, oh, this one tastes like a graham cracker. This one tastes like, it tastes like if I was going to take a bite out of my leather jacket.
Now, excuse my rudeness on the situation, but this is why you're here. How does the blueberry flavor get into a coffee bean?
Pollination. A lot of it's called terroir, basically. Coffee if you have a coffee farm that's next to a place that grows raspberries or grows limes or, you know what I mean? Bees pollinate trees. And so, if you get a farm that's next to a place like that, you'll get cross-pollination, and that's where you end up getting different.
Now, a lot of them are like intentionally grown, like this acre is going to be this acre is going to be coffee, this acre is going to be this, to try and get that flavor profile?
I think that there's probably a little bit of that goes on. I don't know how like hyper intentional they are about that sort of thing. It's sort of because a coffee farmer doesn't own a lime tree farm or something like that, so it's sort of who ends up being next to them, who knows? Yep. You know what I mean? So
now, what do they mean when they say fair trade? Because that's a word gets thrown a lot in the coffee industry.
So fair trade is an organization that basically sets standards for prices. So, for instance, if you go to a farm and they say, well, we want to sell this coffee for $1.50 a pound. Fair trade would, and I'm paraphrasing, but fair trade would say, like, we're going to pay, because we want to elevate this industry, we want to take care of these farmers and these workers, we want to pay you more for your product. So they would say, well, the minimum that we're going to pay for coffee from this region or coffee from this farm is, say, we're going to pay $2.50 a pound minimum. So it sort of sets a pricing floor.
Gotcha. So like a suave coffee buyer can't go down to like a poor family and be like, all right, so everything for $10 and a goat.
Yeah, no, and that's if that area or that farm participates in that program, basically. So it's like a certification process. So
now, how much shady McShaderson stuff goes around coffee buying, if anything?
I'm not entirely sure. I would say that like more like companies like Caribou, Starbucks, larger companies like that are going to, they're all about profit. So they're going to try to get their product as cheap as they possibly can. More like, they're called third wave coffee shops. Basically, just a real quick thing, what third wave means is you're basically treating coffee as a specialty ingredient in a drink that you're making, instead of treating it as a commodity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense with a lot of the stuff I see at Caribou. It's like, all right, so give me the mocha crappa frappa traca latte.
Yes. Yeah. So, And Starbucks, they go through millions of pounds of coffee a year. So they can't necessarily go to these small farms because they won't have the amount of product that they need. So they, they'll buy an entire freaking mountain, and they'll grow all of this farm is owned by Starbucks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now,
so it's more of a trading commodity type thing.
Now, is there more like industrial farming now with like the bigger companies coming in, or is it still like primarily family farm being sold and marketed?
I think with the bigger companies, there's a lot of industrial type stuff going on.
So they just got like a 200-acre tract of land in like South America. It's like, this is Starbucks.
Yeah,
this is going to Howard Schultz.
Pretty much. And, I could be wrong about that, but from my research and kind of what I understand about Starbucks is trying to be better about that thing. They have a Howard Schultz basically quit his CEO job at Starbucks to do their it's called the Roastery, and it's basically Starbucks' attempt to do high-end specialty coffee. Yeah. And it's actually really, from what I've heard, I haven't personally had any myself, but some friends of mine out in Seattle say it's excellent. Yeah. So
now, is there like a secret like brotherhood among roasters?
We're working on it.
Yeah. I feel like you guys could start a secret society,
right?
Yeah, the Skull and Beans.
There's a organization called the Northern Coffee Alliance, and it's basically there's 5 or 6 local roasters that started this thing a while ago, and then it sort of fell off the wagon, and we're sort of attempting to bring it back. We're sponsoring things like latte art throwdowns and educational, like coffee education gatherings, things like that. So, yeah, I'd say the market in Minneapolis is, I consider it one of the kind of premier coffee places around the country, as far as your like Seattle, Portland, New York. I think Minneapolis is up there.
Now, you work a couple of gigs now. Do they each have separate roasting stations?
They do. So, I don't know how familiar you are with Dunn Brothers.
Yeah.
So, Dunn Brothers has a roaster in every shop, and their whole kind of MO is they want you to have the freshest beans possible. So, I work at the Linden Hills location, and there's another shop at 50th and Xerxes. They're owned by the same guy, so his name's Anthony, and I work for him, and so I work at both of those locations. He has 4 roasters on staff, I believe.
Yep.
And so you're getting freshly roasted coffee Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week, which is really cool. Like, there's not a lot of places that have the resources to do something like that.
I just realized I completely interrupted us talking about the roasting process. So,
hey.
Yeah. All right, so let's start. Yeah, I have a tendency to do that and like meander. It's like...
That's why you edit these, right?
No, please. I know some listeners kind of get on me. It's like, your interview style is very herky-jerky, but it's like it's all train of thought.
I'm ADD, so I kind of like it.
All right, so the roasting process, beans show up.
Yep.
So where do we go from there?
So, yeah, I go to a place like Cafe Imports, and I pick which coffees that I would like to roast at my shop. And you do that by tasting stuff over and over again and evaluating, like I said. So you buy coffee in these 78-kilo big burlap sacks, and you either pick them up from the warehouse or you have them delivered.
That's 170 pounds?
160-ish, somewhere in there. I don't know. It's like 2.2 pounds a kilo. I don't know. Anyways.
It's a lot of Coke.
Amen. So, roasting is... There's basically 2 parts to coffee roasting. One is, I don't know how familiar you are with like cooking stuff. So there's Maillard reaction, which is basically proteins in the bean that are transforming into other compounds. And then there's and it turns your coffee brown. That's what gives coffee its brown color.
Yeah, because coffee beans are green when they
they're like a dull yellow green. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is caramelization, which is converting sugars into proteins. Like how you make caramel, or when you brulee creme brulee. Heat converts the sugar into another compound. So those are basically the 2 things that happen. I do. The coffee roasting machine that I have does 25-pound batches, so I weigh out my beans. I get my roaster up to a certain temperature, usually around 400 degrees. I drop my coffee in. It's a cylinder that's rotating over and over again. And there underneath that drum basically is a heat source.
Oh, so it's like a thing that spins the bingo balls?
It's like, yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the exact, that or like a dryer.
Yeah.
Same idea. So there's a flame underneath it that heats the drum. Drums are usually either like stainless steel or cast iron. I work on one of each actually right now. And then there's a fan that pulls air out. And so...
Now, does that air go out to the parking lot as it come hither to everyone driving by?
Basically.
Yeah.
Well... It would. Minneapolis is very strict on air, pollution regulations. So you have to have this thing called an afterburner, which basically, when you pull the smoke out of the chamber, because roasting coffee produces a lot of smoke.
Yep.
An afterburner basically heats up to like 1,000 degrees and incinerates the smoke and all of the chaff that would come off of the bean as it roasts and disintegrates it to nothing. And so you're supposed to have really clean air coming out of there, You
guys should do barbecue, too. I feel like that's a combination that we're sleeping on. Barbecue coffee.
Amen.
Yeah.
Just like smoked coffee. I mean, coffee's it's pretty much smoked. It's just that at a certain point you want to get that smoke out of there so your coffee doesn't taste like smoke.
Yeah.
There's a very fine. The art of coffee roasting is basically finding a balance between the flavors that are inherent, like we talked about, that are inherent in that bean, that kind of show off like the terroir, like where it was grown, the flavors that are inherent there, and at a certain point it starts to take on a roasted taste. So a lot of people that grew up drinking Folgers or Maxwell House or whatever, they're accustomed to a very roasted flavor. Like you don't really, in coffees like that, you don't really taste a lot of the nuances that's actually inherent in the bean. You really just taste roasted coffee.
Yeah.
So something that I'm striving for every time I roast a bean is to try to highlight those awesome nuanced flavors like bergamot and lime and strawberries and graham and all these different things, and then balancing that with the roasted flavor.
Yeah. So, like the typical Folgers or Maxwell House coffee, what kind of bean is that?
So they usually tell you, but most of those are Arabica. Some of them are mixed with what's called a Robusta, which is a much lower quality bean that is grown in bulk, basically.
What's your favorite bean to roast right now?
My favorite coffee to roast is actually my favorite coffee to drink. It's a naturally processed Ethiopia. And it's actually one that I used to roast for Wesley Andrews, and I just found out that my new company actually roasts it too. It's Ethiopia. It's called Kaon Mountain is the farm where it comes from. And like I said, it's a naturally processed. And I don't know how much you want to get into with processing and stuff like that, but I could take you on a whole journey. So there's two main processes. So basically, workers so the coffee bean is actually a seed of a cherry, the fruit that grows on a coffee tree. And
now, is coffee tree just like a tree? Like, can you cut it down? Can you make furniture out of it?
Yeah,
or is it like a bush?
It's more of a bush.
Okay.
It doesn't have a real substantial trunk to it, I don't think.
Because that's something that the coffee hipster cafes could do, is all of our furniture is made from coffee wood. That's a mahogany.
And then you punch them in the throat. So workers pick the cherries. And they bring them to what's called a washing station or a processing plant. So there's two main processes: a washed process, and what washed is basically you run these coffee cherries through a depulping device. Basically, this thing that you crank and you send the cherries through it, and it mechanically removes all the fruit from the cherry.
Gotcha.
Or from the seed. And then the other process is a natural process, and basically what that means is you take the cherry, you lay it out on what's called a drying bed, and you basically let the sun dry up that fruit. And so all the sugars and things that are present in the fruit of that coffee cherry will sort of disintegrate, but then they'll leave sugars basically on the outside of that bean. So naturally processed coffees tend to be sweeter, more complex. Sometimes they'll have winey flavors, things like that. So, and there is one more process called the honey process, and basically it's sort of a hybrid of those other two, where you remove some of the fruit off of the seed, and then you let that dry and ferment a little bit. So it's it's like a hybrid process.
Yeah. So your best cup of coffee, if you're just by yourself, lazy Saturday or Sunday morning, what are you doing for beans, water?
Sure.
Way to make it. Yeah.
So, personally, at my house, I only drink pour over, individually brewed cup of coffee. So pour over is basically instead of brewing it in a machine, I have what's called a gooseneck kettle. I heat up water. I grind my beans fresh right before I brew it, and I have a few different vessels that I brew in. There's one called a Chemex, which uses a really thick paper filter, and you as you brew it, it tends to bring out like brighter flavors in the coffee. Yep. It's good for light roasted stuff. There's V60. There's like AeroPress. I don't know if. There's dozens and dozens of different contraptions you can use to brew coffee. My go-to on a typical Saturday morning is a Chemex, just because I have the most experience with it. I've enjoyed the coffee that I've brewed on that more than, I guess, any other method. So I usually make myself, I like naturally processed Ethiopian coffee, lightly roasted. So those tend to be really bright, really sweet, really fruity coffees. That's just my preference. So, like, I know a lot of coffee snobs will turn up their nose at somebody who likes dark roasted coffee with cream and sugar in it. But, coffee is one of the most subjective things on earth because, people like it different ways. And there's no, like, right way to do anything. It's basically you brew it the way you like it, and if someone else doesn't like it, well, screw them.
Yeah, it's like whatever works for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's my take with beer. I mean, some people like the really hoppy IPA, like super into that, and that's fine for $12 for a 4-pack. I mean, sure. Some people, like my dad could just get cases of Busch Light when they're on sale for $12 back in the day.
Goes down easy.
Yeah. You do whatever you want to do.
Gets you where you need to go.
Yeah. And, I feel like coffee is such a personal thing, too, because it's, not everyone drinks beer every day. Well,
right.
I mean, most people do.
Right.
But most functioning adults do drink coffee every day.
It's true.
Whether it's shotgunning it before work or taking it easy on the weekends. And, like, everyone has their brand. Everyone has their process. What are some coffee trends that you see coming up right now?
Oh, I mean, around the Twin Cities, and this is, I think it's kind of in full swing, is like the whole cold brew thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know all about that? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, basically your cold brew is, instead of brewing coffee using a lot of heat, you're basically letting your coffee ground steep in cold water for 12 to 24 hours. And what that gives you is all the caffeine, all of the flavor, but then none of the acidity. So a lot of people don't drink coffee because it upsets their stomach or because they have sensitive teeth. When you cold brew coffee, it takes all that acid out of the picture. So it's easier. It's just easier for people to drink.
And we'll get into cold brew again after the break. We just got some Blue Door Delicious delivered, and we're right back with more Boo with Andy Carlson with Josh, the Roaster. Andy Carlson here, Purple for the Win podcast, letting you know that we'll be here all off-season long talking the Vikings angle on everything. Combine, pro days, free agency, the draft, OTAs, training camp in 2017. Baby. Get the show on 1500 ESPN, Podcast One, and the Podcast One app. And come on back to the Blue Door Pub on Como. Josh just had the Mount Vesuvius.
Pretty delicious.
Yeah. Not too spicy, but it's got a kick.
It's like right where I like it.
Yeah.
Makes you feel alive.
Yeah. And I had the cease and desist. It was delicious. Also, delicious. Coming up this Saturday, June 3rd, Brunch-a-Palooza. They got bands. They got 4 courses of brunch. They got the Blue Seas, the High Tops, the Tachos, the Flapjacks. Plus, local craft beers. They got some collabs and mimosas and bloodies. Hit it up. Tickets are $69 for a full day of food. Food, too. I'm sure you can get food there.
Food sounds delicious.
Food, music, drinks. It's going to be a good old time. June 3rd, rain or shine, Upper Park Landing, right on the beautiful, mighty Mississippi. Hit it up, Brunchpalooza, Blue Door Pub, and High Low Diner. Come on back with Josh, the roaster, and got some hot coffee talk.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this conversation.
Oh, well, that's good. I don't know if all guests can say that, but it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a pleasant host thus far.
Well, I mean, we're only halfway through.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens.
So the cold brew, I work with a company that does some cold brew stuff as well, and I think you're right. The what used to be the cold coffee or iced coffee was just like, oh, we just have coffee, we let it cool down. But now, like the science of roasting it, without heat, it really does lend to a really smooth coffee and really enjoyable.
For sure. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. And what other trends are on the horizon coffee-wise?
Have you tried the old nitro coffee?
I have.
What's your thoughts on that?
It's very interesting.
That's a very diplomatic response.
Yeah, it's like I like it because obviously it's coffee and everything, but it didn't blow me away. Like I'm not gonna be like stumping or jonesing for it, but
sure, yeah, I can see that.
But there are a lot of people who like stand by it. It's like this is the brand new thing. It's really awesome. I feel like they just add nitro to everything now in food. They do food like microgastronomy. And also, everything's got nitro beer nowadays, so maybe that's just part of the trend.
One of my favorite things is over at the old Big Watt and 5 Watt Coffee over in what is that, Kingfield neighborhood? They do these coffee cocktails, and I think that might be something that is going to hit it big here pretty soon. Basically, really good coffee. And then they'll add some kind of compound simple syrup. Most of the time, like handmade in the shop. And then like some kind of cocktail element, like bitters, things like that. And that seems to be, I mean, it's delicious. I mean, everything I've had over at the old 5 Watt has been really, really good.
Well, one of our sponsors is actually Bad Larry's Hard Coffee, and that's coming out. It's in a couple stores now. And it's cold brew coffee, and they add some sweetness. They add some malt to it. It's like 6% ABV.
Oh my!
Dangerously smooth.
Oh my!
Dangerously high in alcohol content. Dangerously smooth. Get it at all Total Wines in the Twin Cities area. There you go, free plug. I feel like that's where it's at too. Like, we got coffee, and we got booze. And do you remember the Drew Carey show?
Vaguely.
Yeah. Like back in the day, it was like, oh, they started a company called Buzz Beer. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is a great idea. Except no one was able to capitalize on it because of the whole bureaucracy of brewing, and also coffee is extremely strict. But eventually they're coming together now.
Oh.
And
hard coffee.
In the wake of Four Loko, I feel like we're going to take it a little bit slow. But, yeah, I mean, if you're having brunch or chasing the hair of the dog, now you have your choice. You can have a coffee cocktail. You can have a bloody mimosa.
I like uppers with my downers.
Yeah. Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all life problems.
Amen.
Right now, what's an up-and-coming area for coffee beans?
As far as, like, origin?
Yeah.
Up and coming. Well,
like blow me away with like a Botswana.
I was going to tell you Burundi.
I don't know where that is.
Burundi's in Africa.
Okay.
So basically, it for a long time was a country that basically just grew commodity grade coffee. Just cheap garbage for large corporations.
Yep.
More recently, there's been a sort of a coffee renaissance in that country where, just off the top of my head, there's a organization called the Long Miles Project, and this is a free plug for them if anybody that listens to your show has any clue what I'm talking about. Basically, what they have done is, for a long time, if you bought coffee from Burundi, it was not traceable back to the farm that it was grown on. So what that means is basically all these different farmers would bring their harvest to a processing station, and it would basically all get dumped together in one big pile and processed and exported. And so what Ben Miles from the Long Miles Project has done is basically built his own washing station, and he has sort of added back that traceable thing to their coffee. And while at the same time he's helped farmers sort of improve their methods of farming and their standards and things like that. And now if you get a Burundi, chances are it's going to be just an excellent coffee, sort of because of the work that he's done. And so, yeah, I don't know if that fits the criteria of what you're asking, but used to be really garbage coffee, and they've done a lot to improve it. And now it's basically I would call it like the baby Kenya, which Kenya's a really good specialty coffee growing country. Yep. It has a lot of similar characteristics. And it's vastly improved the lives of all of the farmers and workers that live there. So it's a great thing.
Oh yeah, if you have a crop in demand, it's definitely going to improve prices and improve quality of life.
It's true.
That's why cocaine farmers do so well. Speaking of inelastic demand, yeah. All right, now mainly tropical regions for the coffee: the South Americas, the Africas, where in Asia Pacific.
So basically, what you need to grow coffee is heat and altitude. So mountainous regions along the equator are prime coffee growing areas. So as far as the Asia goes, Indonesia, Sumatra, the island of Sumatra, what is it, Papua New Guinea? That's more of a Pacific island, I think. Obviously, Hawaii grows coffee, which it's not really good, but a lot of people think it's really cool because it's from the United States.
American coffee.
Yeah, basically. I've never had a Kona coffee that I've really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean...
could they grow coffee beans in Florida?
You can grow them anywhere, but they're not going to...
They'd be terrible.
When I was apprenticing...
They taste like redneck.
Yeah, they just don't... Well, so the higher the elevation that your coffee grows at, the denser the bean is going to be, and the more complex and good the flavor is going to be. So you really need that elevation and that air pressure to properly grow your coffee.
Now, is there a master's program when it comes to, when it comes to roasting or tasting? Is there a sommelier equivalent in coffee?
So there's an organization called the Specialty Coffee Association. The SCA, and they're basically at the forefront of coffee education, things like that. They have a global expo every year, usually out in Seattle. They offer a lot of online training. You can be certified as a barista, as a roaster. You can be certified as a green coffee buyer. And there's some other ones like that, but yeah, it's not an accredited thing, right? You can't go to the U of M and get a degree in coffee. But
if you have your barista's certification from them,
within the industry, that's a legit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a legit thing.
So you can walk into the local Starbucks and be like, "Hey, I need more money."
They wouldn't give a crap.
Damn it. Damn it.
Yeah, but you're going to be taken more seriously. You're going to have more opportunities, just like you would with a college degree. If you went into a specialty shop and said, "Hey, I have my level 2 barista certification," you're going to be immediately more educated and more qualified than anybody that probably currently works there. So,
which roasts have the most caffeine in it?
So there's some wives' tales associated with this question. And in my research, I've found basically Starbucks will tell you that their breakfast blend has the most caffeine, which is not scientifically true. So basically, the darker you roast the coffee, the more concentrated the compounds within that bean are going to be, including caffeine.
Yep.
So, logically speaking, the more concentrated all those compounds are, the more caffeine content is going to be. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
So scientifically speaking, darker roasted coffee would have a more concentrated caffeine level.
Gotcha. So if you just really went to town on those beans and just let it keep on going and keep on going, like it'll be like bitter and burnt and stuff, but it'll have a lot of caffeine.
I mean, I'm sure there's a certain point, certain temperature where caffeine as a compound will, what's the word I'm looking for, break down and cease to exist. But yeah, sure.
So what team is that hat from?
Everybody asks me this. I bought it at Target.
Okay. Just a red hat with a stock.
They have I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like local. It's a local something series. So there's a little round kiosk of clothing with M hats and like T-shirts that say UFDA or Minnesota grown. So I'm pretty sure the M just means it's just Minnesota generic.
Well, also it's
Mario,
like Minnesota Millers or something.
I wish.
Oh,
I tried
Mario,
to buy a Minnesota. Is it the Millers? There's a like a specialty clothing store in the North Loop called Wilson and Willie's, and they have it's an old. Pretty sure like Ted Williams or somebody played for them, the Millers.
Yep.
And they sell these like old school Ebbets. So it's like the Ebbets Field series of
that's
hats.
cool. Yeah.
But this is not one of those.
Oh, smooth segue from Target hats to travel. So two-part question. Have you traveled for coffee? And B, do you want to? And where would you go?
I have not yet, but it's sort of on the horizon. So as a roaster with Dunn Brothers, you get the chance once a year they do a source trip.
Yep.
So we'll pick one of the coffees that we carry, and we will go to the source and visit the farm and get to know the farmer.
That's really cool.
So last year, oh man, I want to say they went to Costa Rica or El Salvador or something like that.
Or be like, raise my hand. Hey, boss, we need to check out that Kona blend. Yeah, we really need to check that thing out.
For a couple of weeks at least. I'm going to need some extra research time. But yeah, so every year Dunn Brothers does a large trip like that. I would love if my career evolved into that of somebody that travels and visits coffee regions. That would be a dream come true for me.
Now, still sticking with the roasting, or eventually do you want to get into like the tasting, the selecting, like become a coffee bar? Oh, do you remember the movie Jungle the Jungle? Oh, damn it!
Sorry,
because I'm pretty sure Tim Allen was a coffee buyer in that movie.
Yeah. All I can think of is Jumanji for some reason.
Yeah, close.
So that's totally different.
Close enough. Close enough.
Jumanji was about coffee?
Should be.
Fantastic.
I feel like that should be a new blend.
The Jumanji blend at Dunn Brothers.
Now, when you were a barista, was that still in the era of like the drawing the heart on the
latte art? Yep, that's very much in vogue right now.
Do you still have the skill? You a little rusty?
I'm a bit rusty. I took about a month off from doing that sort of thing, but working at Up right now, I'm actually baristaing there 3 or 4 days a week, and so I've gotten to sort of reclaim that skill a little bit. Yeah, it's fun.
What's the most annoying coffee order that you've ever gotten?
Well, I worked at Starbucks like 10 years ago, so basically every order that I received at Starbucks was annoying. Half-calf soy, 2 pumps of vanilla. Well, you know the whole Starbucks secret menu thing?
I know of it, yeah.
It has to just make every Starbucks barista want to shoot themselves in the face.
Yeah, because you got to be too cool for school to order. You can't be seen ordering off the menu.
Right.
Yeah. Or ordering off something off the menu. You got to be off the menu.
It's probably okay if if you go in late at night and you're the only person in there and be like, hey, barista buddy, can you make this butter beer frappuccino for me?
Yeah.
Or I heard the unicorn frappuccino made everybody want to quit.
Yeah.
But I also heard that Starbucks made like $500 million in one day on that drink alone. So
I guess that's here to stay. Yeah, it's got me annoying when you get a specialty drink at like $7.09 when you're like 22 deep.
I'll say this. I really appreciate it when a customer comes in and wants to try the pure product.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of regulars that will just come in and order a shot of espresso, which I love that because it tells me that they appreciate the like core of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or people that come in and order a pour over and they drink it black. Like, I like that because I want people to taste my labor and not doctor it up. I mean, and like I said before, like I'm not judging people that like their coffee.
You see a customer and you want them to drink it black.
Oh. Amen. Yes, I do.
Damn it, now I got to pay for that.
And I try to suggest to people like, hey, where's your cream and sugar? And I say, well, I would love for you to just try this black before you put stuff in it, because I just want you to know, like, what I did to make it taste this way, and I want you to, even if you don't like it that way, just try it. I want you to know. So,
well, I look forward because you brought some delicious beans, hand them out to the staff. It's very cool to be here at the Blue Door, but of course I kept the Costa Rica.
That's the closer.
Finca.
That's the Dennis Eckersley of.
Ooh, that's a good call.
Up Coffee Roasters coffee right there, or the Everyday Eddie, if you will.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna crack this open and smell this.
Go for it. Yeah. Now that was roasted today.
So
I would suggest waiting a couple days before you brew that up.
All right. So with freshly roasted beans, what how should people store them? How long should they take? Should they grind them fresh before they do every batch? What?
So, yes. You should always, if you can help it at all, you should always keep your beans whole and not ground until right before you brew your coffee. Some people say that you have to brew your coffee within an hour of grinding them. Some people say like 30 minutes. Like, it just depends on how passionate I think they are. There's a lot of different ways to store coffee. Like, you obviously want an airtight kind of environment because coffee degrades, and the number one killer of coffee flavor is oxygen. Yep. So if you can get yourself a little airtight container to keep it in, there's some science out there about freezing your coffee. That was shunned for a long time by people in the coffee industry. But there's actually kind of a resurgence of pro-coffee bean freezing people. And there's some good science behind it. I could talk for a half an hour about that, so I'll just spare you those details. But if you... the optimum way to store your coffee would be to freezer pack it in one of those food savers and throw it in your freezer. But I know not everybody has
food saver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that at their disposal. So
it's not the 2000s anymore. They used to be a big thing.
Yeah, I know, right? Now with the sous vide is coming back.
Oh yeah.
And so the food savers sort of it's been brought back to life. I just use a Ziploc bag, but if at the bare minimum, please don't get your coffee ground when you buy it at the store. Take it home. Invest in a conical burr grinder. You can get a cheap one for $30 at Target. You can get a really nice one for a couple $100 online.
But this is where I don't tell Josh that I just have one of those electric grinders with the blade. But it's okay.
Those are really good for grinding spices.
Yeah.
But not really good for grinding coffee. But that's okay. It's better. Having a crappy blade grinder is better than having no grinder at all.
I feel like if they came out with a hand crank burr grinder.
There are.
Oh,
there are plenty.
I'm such a good marketer to hipsters. Because I think a product's already exists.
In fact, there's actually a coffee grinder called Hand Ground. So you obviously know what you're talking about. Hand ground. There's a lot of, you can go to Williams-Sonoma or wherever, Bed Bath & Beyond, and buy yourself a hand crank little coffee grinder. I think they're called Porlex. Yeah. Porlex is the brand.
Now, what's in the coffee community right now, like, what's the big disagreement on whether A or B, or like a method, or?
Oh man, that's a good question. Oh, here's a good one. To serve blended beverages or not to serve blended beverages, like frappuccinos, frappes, whatever.
Yeah.
Every specialty shop I've ever worked at just
doesn't
hates the idea, and it's very loud.
Yeah.
So, you go into a Dunn Brothers, and they're serving in the summer. They're going to be serving a lot of blended beverages, and so you go in there wanting to read a book or do some homework or whatever, and it's going to be very loud because. Yep. So I get that. I get the point. Now
I'm very annoyed by this free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, right. Come on, people.
Yeah.
Pick your battles.
Yeah. And, like, I understand the purity, and like you said, you're tasting your work, and beyond cream and sugar. This is a lot of cream and sugar, right?
People don't put cream and sugar in their wine, do they?
Yeah, that's true. Some people put ice cubes, but that's something for another
Actually,
day.
I've heard that can open up let it bloom a little bit, like putting a couple drops of water in your scotch.
Of course. But the coffee shop, it's also still a business. You got to keep the lights on, and if that's what's selling,
amen.
You kind of have to not necessarily sell out, but you got to keep this thing afloat
for
to
sure.
keep doing your passion.
And I've been on both sides of that spectrum where I worked at a shop that made no money because they refused to really cater to what people wanted. They really had their own idea of what coffee should be, and they're like I said, making no money. I work at a place like Dunn Brothers, which we really cater to what people want. So that's why we're doing a lot of dark roasted things. We're doing blended beverages, and I love it because you know what? We can pay all of our employees a decent living wage.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a balance there somewhere.
Yeah.
That needs to be found for sure.
Yeah. So, and even working for Dunn Brothers, it's it's not a it's a mid-size franchise. It's big regionally.
There's like 86 stores or something nationwide.
And some people say it's like, I'm a coffee purist. I only go to individual owned stores. Like, well, okay, but you don't have the infrastructure. You don't have everything that goes along with part of franchise, the marketing, the name recognition that helps breed success and keep the lights on and help gets everyone get paid.
Exactly.
So it's like you want to be the starving artist, except you'd like to get rid of the starving part.
I got kids.
Yeah.
I got a mortgage.
Yeah.
I don't have time for making minimum wage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Got to put food on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. The trying to think of something profound to leave us off on, but for the coffee industry, next 10 years, do you see any shifts? Do you see anything going on, or is it going to be business as usual?
There's some rumors floating around out there about a worldwide coffee shortage happening. I don't know. I think it's just scare tactics. There are some worries about. There's a thing called coffee rust, which is basically like a disease that hits coffee trees,
it's like the blight.
So, it is literally the blight of the coffee growing industry, and so there's people working on resistant strains, like coffee strains that are resistant to this coffee rust. So let's just all pray to the good Lord that that doesn't happen, because with how much tension and crap is going on in the world right now, I cannot imagine a United States without coffee. That would suck.
We'd just drink a lot more.
That's true.
Yeah. Speaking of what's going on in the world, so big Vikings fan?
Yep.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Man.
Thoughts?
Love him to death. I think he's a great kid, as Zimmer would say. I can't put my finger on where he is right now. Like, I know that the Vikings put out those videos of him throwing the ball
Yeah.
at OTAs, but like that video is also in slow motion for a reason, I believe. He probably, he's probably not anywhere near ready to be on the field.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that if he recovers, that he's going to be a above average good quarterback in the NFL. But I wish him the best.
Yeah.
And whatever happens to the kid, I wish him the best.
He did put out Twitter or Instagram, one of the two photo of him fishing over Memorial Day weekend, and bam, the knee was right there, no brace, no scars. I think that was pretty intentional.
Yeah, well, he's sitting on a boat.
Yeah. See, I always give Teddy like too much credit for being like this Machiavellian genius, but yeah, maybe it was just because he was on a boat and it was in the frame. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the kid, though.
Last part, how do you think the Vikings are going to do this year?
Well, I think that we did some good things to address our weaknesses in the draft. I'm not sold on our 2 tackles that we signed in free agency.
You kind of look like Mike Remmers, though.
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him. I know he used to. He was with the Vikings for a while, and then went to Carolina, right?
Yeah, Carolina. He was decent. He's a decent right tackle, but he's famous for getting abused in the Super Bowl by Von Miller.
Yeah, I remember that. But
I mean, it's Von Miller.
Decent sounds like an upgrade.
Yeah,
for us.
We'll take decent. You can win with decent.
You sure can.
Yeah.
So.
Give me a record prediction.
Oh boy, what were they last year?
8-8 after starting out 5-0.
Man, yeah, that was pathetic. Let's go. I'm gonna be the optimist, and let's say 9-7.
Hey, playoffs?
Yes.
Nice. And then we make the run. And then we win
the
the
Packers are going to go 0-16.
Yeah.
Because I hate the Packers. Let it be known.
And then we win the Super Bowl in our own stadium. And then
please, Lord Jesus.
Well, and then all of us here in Minnesota, we kind of have to just off ourselves because like it's not going to get any better. Like it's all downhill from there.
Honestly, I would die a happy man.
He's Josh Nelson, Josh the Roaster. Josh the Roaster on Twitter and Instagram. Appreciate you coming in, man.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
And hey, since you're a young parent too, and you got another one on the way, good night's sleep is very important. Lisa Sleep, our new friends, ship straight to your door. And it's a little creepy. I'm not going to lie, getting the whole mattress in a box thing because it's like 80 pounds, drag it in, and then it's all vacuum sealed. And you're like, how is this going to be a bed, right?
What?
And then you just cut open the bag and it's really awesome. It was really cool. 100 nights guaranteed, so if you don't like it, you return it, get your money back. No questions asked. It breathes, you stay cool, it's firm. And here's what the wife said most about it, is that I roll around in my sleep. She said on the Lisa mattress, she can't feel me rolling around. She gets a full night's sleep. It's all great. LisaSleep.com/purpleftw is the site, or just put in the code Andy, A-N-D-Y, 4 letters. I'll get you $75 off your purchase right. Oh, also, right now, you can catch the tail end of their Memorial Day sale for an extra $100 off. So do that up. Lisa.com/purpleftw, code Andy, $75 off. All right, if you want to spread the word on the show, tell a friend, add to the Jerome Homie Army. We're on all the various platforms. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all at Andy Carlson Show. Oh, and also we're going to get Josh more active on Snapchat, too.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. Thanks, producer Allie Jerome Sorensen, who's a big coffee fan. She'll be listening to the show for making me not sound so stupid today. But for Josh the Roaster, I'm Andy Carlson saying, and Young, sayonara, and bye-bye. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Bowl with Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast. Download the show on iTunes. Everyone's middle name is Jerome.